Hi, my name is Rio Waller, and I'll be teaching CIT93 JavaScript in the fall 2024 semester 100% online, which is the way I like to teach. I've noticed it's the way most technology-based students like to have their classes delivered. But it doesn't mean we can't benefit from some of the traditional classroom like meetings, which will be something I'll talk about as we move into this class. So, what is JavaScript? JavaScript is the programming language of the web. Last statistic I saw was 98 to 99% of all websites, think about that for a minute, all websites have implemented some level of JavaScript, whether that be JavaScript on the client side, which you might go, what does that mean? That means as you're interacting with a web page, you've brought that page and that code to you, and when you're interacting with it, that's on the client side, and the client most all the time is the browser. Now, there is JavaScript on the server side as well, which is not what this class is about, but that is another option. But programming is the idea of writing code to accomplish some type of specific need or functionality is the other way we could talk about this. Now, for those of you who are coming into this semester, you may be taking this class because it is required or optional, one of the classes in your program. Many of you, I'm guessing, will also be in here because of the web development program. You know, I generally have a mixture of students from different paths, right? Different programs or certifications or, various reasons. I've actually had students take this class. They're actually out there working, maybe in a different programming language, and they want to level up on JavaScript. So there could be a variety of reasons students are in a class like this. But those are the major reasons. So in the world we live today, when we talk about coding and programming, you may have heard or you yourself have had some experiences with these large language models. And so the most common one is ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, built by OpenAI, right, is a generative conversational large language model. And these things definitely can write code. Now, how good that code is a question. And is it really now not even a skill that we should learn? So I thought, you know what? I know how I would answer that question. I thought, well, how would one of these large language models answer that question? So that was one of the first things I did as I prepared for this start here to this course. So on my local system that we're seeing over here, I have a couple of things open, and one of the things I have open is actually using Llama. Now, Llama, in this case 3, is Facebook's large language model. The difference for me here is I'm running it locally, right? And this class is obviously not about large language models, generative AI, ChatGPT. But there is something that we need to talk about in relationship to these topics. Because it's a fairly common thing I hear these days, which is it still important to learn to code given these large language models? So I thought, okay, I'm going to ask this of, in my case, Llama 3 with 4.7 billion parameters, which is, by the way, just a huge amount of parameters. So the quality of this should be on par. As a matter of fact, last time I looked, it was on par with ChatGPT. Claude is now gaining, again, a lot of popularity, but again, this is not a class about that. This is a class about learning to code. So is it still important? So Llama said in this case, with the rapidly advancing, you can read it, technology, and you could run the same. And by the way, this is called a prompt, right? We're prompting it. We're asking generally a question. And in this case, it's like some people might wonder if coding is still relevant. Llama's answer was yes. And there's a growing number of reasons. Growing demand, which might be kind of like, really? Because you may have been hearing that AI, generative AI, is replacing jobs. Okay, there may be a certain type of job, it's hard to say based on the variety of jobs that exist in the world. But in this case, in the technology area of coding, we're seeing an interesting shift. And what this will be is that, yes, you want to learn to use the large language models to help you become a better coder, but you still need to learn how to code because not only is it a skill, right? Skill. I shouldn't actually air quote that because skill is skill, right? The ability to do something. But it is also, and this is part of what I found in here, right, is a way of actually helping you think critically and problem solve. Sorry, my nose itches. And this is what one of the benefits of a class like this is actually to help you do that. So in addition to growing demand, of course, automation and AI, customization, innovation, there's a lot of different reasons. I don't know, I was actually kind of surprised by all of them, but I asked a very general question. And when you're asking a very general question, you're going to get a broad result, right? Career opportunities, digital literacy, just because so much of what we are dealing with is on the web, and so no matter what IT path you may be in, having some coding experience is a good idea, right? Personal projects, entrepreneur, maybe you have an idea you'd like to put into the world, education, research, future proofing, right? So it is still relevant based on this answer and based on what I see in the general consensus. I would agree with this, right? So is JavaScript a good, so this is my next question, is it a good first language to learn? And in this case, I thought this was a pretty good answer because it's like, there's pros and cons of being maybe, because for some of you, JavaScript may not be your first programming language. Now, you may be going, well, what does that even mean, JavaScript? So I'm going to move for a second over here, and I just did a quick Google search. I could have done a similar thing on Llama, but I didn't. But I said, programming languages in 2024, Python, Java, JavaScript. So the first thing I just want you to know, and coming into a class like this, is that I want you to know we're teaching you to write Java script, not Java, okay? The way I said that, don't let that stick in your head, because there actually is a class that we offer in the CIT department that actually is Java, and it's still very relevant. I mean, it's listed twice, on the second listing here, 3 if we go this in order, 4, right? So, but it is different than JavaScript. So JavaScript, as I said before, is the programming language of the web. So these are programming languages, so somewhat like, different speaking languages, right? The ability to be able to converse in different languages. I say I'm not bilingual in the sense that I can speak fluently in other languages, but I can definitely code in different programming languages. And I believe that when I feel myself coding in these other languages, the ones I don't code in every day, or even the ones I code in more often, is there something about that, what it does to your brain with that focus, that problem solving? And that kind of goes back to what I was saying before. But just to jump in there and talk about JavaScript itself. Now, is it a good first programming language? Again, maybe some of you have already had a programming language. This is not your first. But if it is, right, there's pros and cons. I think for the most part, it's very approachable. And that's some of the topics here. It's easy to get started for sure, right? And it lays out some of the cons, complexity, syntax quirks. We'll talk about some of that. Browser inconsistencies, and you might want to go, why is this an issue? It's because there are several browsers out there, and actually no longer, right? So Internet Explorer, Edge, right? So I don't use it, I don't know it. Chrome, Safari, Brave, Opera, Firefox is still out there, but because all of these have a little bit different implementation, oftentimes a lot more depending on how they're written. When you're writing code for them, it makes it a bit more challenging. because you have to understand those differences. But I kind of jumped right over, the first part of it, right? The pros, right? So it's ubiquitous. It's just everywhere. It's dynamic. It's pretty forgiving. This is so true. You can get feedback really quickly, and we're going to learn that because one of the things I want to teach you is actually how to use the built-in browser tools, and in this case from Chrome. I recommend, unless you're just adversely to Chrome, which if you are, that's cool too. Just know that the way I'm going to show using dev tools to have your code, to watch your code run, is really going to be important, because part of this class, and that's kind of the part I probably want to jump into next, is like part of this course is learning actually how to code. And sometimes when we're coding, it is hard to visualize what that code's doing, and DevTools is a way to help you see line by line appear into what actually is happening. But I kind of jumped off here. I started here. Here's our Canvas course, right? And let me just talk for a moment here about the way our course is set up, because that's part of what I want you to get with the start here, right? Get an understanding of the course itself at its widest, most general concepts. And one of the things you can see as you're here, and I'm looking at it as a student, is that notice how this first start here is available, and you've already clicked into here. I'm guessing you got an email from me, or you just got into the course and you started, right? I'm going to back up in just a second. And I talk about this a bit more in week 1 attendance, so I'm just giving you a little bit of taste here. But this course is set up to enforce sequential movement. Basically what that means is you have to go through the course in order. In order to do week 1, you have to have done week 0. Now, not only just from the Canvas perspective, but actually what you need to do to actually work on the week 1 work is give me your GitHub username, which kind of starts to introduce some of the concepts. So let's go back here. Okay. All right, so we talked about AI tool. Let me just kind of track to make sure we have it all in here. So this course, so there's 3 parts of this course. There's the weekly work, which accounts for about 60%, I think 60% exactly, of your grade. And this is your coding along with me, which, by the way, there's no cost for the textbook for this class. I create 90% of all the materials. What I don't create, I use of YouTubers. I appreciate their content. So this weekly work is you coding along with me. And then at the end of the week, for the first 9 weeks, then we will have a coding challenge, sort of, to where I'll give you a task, because those first code along items of the first of the week is actually just between you and me, okay? And you're coding along with me, and we're going to use a dev environment. We'll talk about that actually in week 1. And then you will use something called Git, which is a version control to keep track of your code. You use GitHub in order to push changes to GitHub to share with the course. Okay, so in this case, the weekly work is a code along and maybe 2 code alongs, depending on the week we're in, and a discussion. Okay, so that's the weekly work for the first 9 weeks. Then about at that little after the first half of the class, we continue this weekly work. Matter of fact, you're going to see that starting in week 1, you'll have a thing that you follow along with me, kind of your first gentle code along, and then you will have a discussion where you actually get your hands in there, create some of your first files that you need, and you'll get some experience with that. But so this will, right? So then we'll move on. So we'll end up for that first 9 weeks focused only on or solely on weekly work, where you're basically building that code, but you're building that skill base. And I believe this semester we will actually build a carbon footprint app. And this is something I've done for the last 2 semesters. I think it worked out really well. It's really a fun app, in my opinion, right? And then you will build that based on those design patterns. So when I walk you through how to build this thing, I will then say, okay, now that you have these concepts, I will then, after that point in the semester, you will every week take your own topic, your own idea, and implement that code those code patterns, those design patterns. Okay, so you're basically learning and then you're doing. Now, part of this class is also a code review, but I'm actually changing the name this semester and calling it a technical interview, because code review was that got the feeling, I think, with students, even though I tried to explain it, is they thought, well, we would just go in and we'd look at the code you've already written. Well, this is not what this is. This is actually a technical interview. Well, I will give you, like last semester, I actually, and I'll probably have to do something similar this semester, is I'll actually give you a task to code, relatively basic programming task to code in front of me. And then I will ask you questions as you move through that. So what this really means, and it kind of goes back to this first topic here, is yes, there are these large language models out there that can code for you. But in a class like this, and in general, you need to do the work authentically. Now, I do have a structure to encourage you to do that by doing this version control and the commits at specific points, and that's how I grade. But it also leads to this technical interview, okay? And that I'm really doing because what we're really seeing there is how well did you acquire the problem solving skill or the skill of knowing how to write code. And it's not that you have to have every detail. I actually will work with you during that interview and kind of help guide you in some ways if you struggle with some parts of it, because really what I want to see is how well did you translate this skill of problem solving using JavaScript to accomplish a specific task. Now, having said that, a good topic right now where we're at with this point is actually to go look at the syllabus. Now, I'm just going to open this in another tab. I'm not going to go through this in detail. I recommend you do, because there are some really good things in this course. My office hours, which I do office hours on campus and on Zoom at the same time, Monday through Thursday. Friday I do my office hours at home, like I'm at right now. We do have a tutor for this class. I don't know the tutor schedule yet, but hopefully by the time you get in here, you'll see it. So go through this in detail and look at the attendance policy, important. Look at the drop, really important about that. The holidays, which are laid out. And then this is what I was talking about before. The weekly work, the development project, and the technical interview. Okay? And then makeup and late work. Definitely check that out. It's an important part of understanding the parts of the course. And hopefully at this point you've been in courses before where you've noticed the importance of looking through the syllabus. And I would definitely encourage you to do that here. And I've already talked about this concept, which is, that this built our course. I've set it up such that you have to work through it in sequence. Okay, as part of this course, I really encourage you to reach out for help, okay? Because oftentimes, you may struggle with understanding a concept or trying to get some code to work. And, using large language models might help give you the right code, but will it give you the understanding of why you do things like that, right? So in that case, having that understanding is important. And I say this at this point because you have multiple ways to get help in this class, okay? Of course, you can come to me. I already showed you my office hours, made it hopefully convenient for you to come. And also see Zach. Zach's great, very helpful. And if those two things, based on your schedule and Zach's schedule and mine, because I know for me, I'm early morning, like I'm up early, I exercise, I try to get online and get my immediate stuff that I need to reply to. I grade. I generally grade every day, which is a benefit to you because if you're working ahead of the due date, then if you miss something and I give you feedback, you can resubmit. Really, I think a helpful process if you understand that. But the other thing I offer, so come see me, right? Go see Zach. Use the large language models. Again, not to write code for you, but for you to understand code. But the other thing is I offer up a Discord server. I've been running a Discord server for my classes for many years now. And I've given you a link here to the Discord server. Now this Discord server, just to be clear, is really intended for student-to-student communication, student to student, not student to me, okay? Because that's really what Canvas is for you to communicate with me through Canvas. Come see me during my office hours. Now, I am on Discord, and if I happen to be there when you ask a question and I'm able to answer, I will. Resist the temptation, if you've never been on Discord, but if you have, to at me, or you've probably been on other social medias as the same idea. I'll show you Discord in a minute. But in this case, resist that temptation, because it's not helpful, because students will think, well, you're waiting for me to answer. And also, don't try to reach me by direct messaging me. But I've given you a link here to the server. I've given also a code of conduct, because there is a certain code of conduct expected on these online forums. So if you want to join the Discord server, it's not required, but if you want to, once you come in here, you will get into here, and we have a private channel for our course. So what that means is, as students come on, as you join the server, you can ask me to be placed into the private or the channel, in this case CIT93, and I will place you in there and I will place you in there so that you can be in the channel with other students who are also taking this course. Now, in this Discord server, there are other students that have taken the course before. So if you ask a question at a particular point in the evening, because that's generally where I see this used, although it could be used anytime during the day, right? But often I notice many students work at night, which I get for whatever their own personal reasons. So at night, if somebody isn't answering your question, you could also try to post it up in here, which is just a general JavaScript channel. Okay, so just understand, right? It's optional, encouraged, right? There's a code of conduct, so check it out. There is also the tutoring, so I've given you multiple ways to get started. Okay, so hopefully that helps you understand that part. And what we'll kind of end with is this idea of Git and GitHub, right? So Git is the software that we use to version control. So anytime you're coding, like changing one character, we're tracking, of course, you're generally more than one character, but we're tracking all those changes to then have you use Git to actually show those changes over time. And this is just a part of not only the development, the software development, software engineering, very commonplace there, but it's become very commonplace for other careers paths I've noticed, like for data analysis, right? So if you're trying to do something and somebody's provided a library for free and you want to go grab it, it's often out of GitHub. So the difference between Git, so Git is a software that does the version controlling. GitHub is a website, a cloud-based service provided by Microsoft at this point, because they bought Git years ago and now it's Microsoft owned and operated, but still, right, it's generally part of their philanthropic or programmer, we call it developer relations, an important part of that. And of course, this ability to version control software is way important. So how we're going to use it is you're going to need to have a GitHub username, which is completely free. This class should not cost you any money. Okay, so I've given a link here to GitHub. So what you're going to do is, if you don't already have a GitHub username, what you do is come in here and you will sign up. Okay, now if you have a GitHub username, you can just give me that in the assignment. But if you haven't signed, you need to sign up and acquire that username. You'll have to give it an email. You don't have to use your campus email. There may be a place on that sign up that it says, hey, you want to upgrade to a pro account. Don't do it. You don't need it. So just get your username so that you can ask me to invite you into a part of GitHub that we will use specifically for our class. that contains both public and private repos. And repos are just another way to say folder, although I would say it's a folder with a lot more functionality. That's the way I would think of it. So in this case, coming back here, right, so now I've given you Git is the software, GitHub is the website, the cloud services, right? And then in this case, GitHub does now require 2FA, which is two-factor authentication. And almost everybody is doing this. Even Fresno City now, I believe, I know for the faculty we have to do this, and I think for students you have to do this as well. In order for you to get into the systems, you have to not only have the password, but you have to have another factor. So password is one factor, another factor is oftentimes SMS message. Okay, so that's 2FA. So I'm just giving you that heads up that that is true for GitHub as well. So to complete this assignment, it's kind of where we're at, right? So I've given you an overview of the course. I've talked about the importance of actually authentically learning how to code and not just having and by the way, you couldn't really use AI to code for you for this class. I mean, you could try, but you'd probably spend more time trying to figure out what it wrote versus writing it yourself. And the reason you want to do that is you have a technical interview for this course. Oh, and the thing I will say about the technical interview, I don't think I said before, that technical interview is open for you to do from, I think, week 10 until the end of the semester. And I generally recommend you do it sooner, as soon as it is available to you, because it will cover the concepts up to the point you do the technical interview. So for those of you that are new, right, I definitely, and really anybody, you get to choose when, but the sooner is probably going to be the better. Okay, so the thing you will do here, though, just to end this, is to actually start the assignment. Give me your GitHub username, and then when you do that, you will then open up week 1 where you can watch the video I recorded a little while ago for how to get started on the work and what happens after you submit this. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for choosing Fresno City College. Thanks for choosing this course. I look forward to getting to know you. Have a good one.